Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to be here on this Sunday morning or whenever you are watching this broadcast. I would like to remind you that you can that you can support our ministry by going to our website and through PayPal or directly to the address that we have on file. And also, I would like to ask you to give us a like on Facebook and and also to share this video with your friends and to give us also a comment or two to let us know that you are there watching us. In the meantime, let us go ahead and begin with prayer. As we enter into the awareness of God's presence, we just become still. And know that regardless of the appearances, regardless of circumstances, that there's only one presence, that there's only one power, God the Good. So I'm going to invite you to declare that with me. There's only one presence, there's only one power, God the Good, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. And from that awareness, we give thanks. We release this prayer into the universe and it becomes law. And so it is. My dear friends, today we're going to be talking about renewing our minds, but perhaps from a different perspective that you have seen before. So let us get started. Perhaps one of the biggest challenges that a unity or a new thought minister faces every time that he or she prepares a lesson, how can I say it? It's being faithful. It's being faithful to the teachings of his or her denomination, and at the same time being cognizant of scientific discoveries that support or deny the teachings of traditional religion or spirituality, or even one owns denomination, or even worse, our own paradigms and way of thinking. The field of quantum physics, which has evolved in the last 75 years or so, give or take a few, in my opinion, reaffirms and reinforces many of the teachings that we find in the Judeo-Christian scriptures and other sacred books from other traditions as well. Our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, wrote that God is always seeking to awaken man's very soul to his mighty presence. He thus expands the consciousness, offering man an opportunity more fully and more perfectly to express him. Let's change the language here and bring it to 21st century language, and let's clean up the anthropomorphic language that's in it. The universe or source energy constantly seeks to awaken us to an awareness of its presence, giving us the opportunity to expand our consciousness and self-awareness of ultimate reality. Those of us that grew up in a traditional religion were taught to believe. How? By faith. Okay? There was no questioning. There was no questioning how things worked, how miracles happened, and so forth. In the tradition that I grew up with, I was told that when I presented my teachers with a question, they would tell them it's a mystery. That was the standard answer. So we were supposed to believe blindly what was being preached at church or taught at the parochial schools where we attended. Yet, in our unity teachings, we have come to learn that God, Spirit, ultimate reality, whatever name you choose to call the divine, doesn't do anything for you, for me, unless it does it through you and through me. So when I first discovered that the thoughts that I held in mind determined my reality, I thought that I had reached a state of enlightenment. I thought that that was it. I had arrived. And little did I know that I was merely scratching the surface of what was known then, and it's now known now, as positive thinking. So I am not knocking down, my mentors from the past like Napoleon Hill or Norman Vincent Peale or James Allen or any of those positive thinking pioneers. But I have come to the realization that positive thinking is not enough. Of course, positive thinking is much better than negative thinking. But again, it can only take us so far. In Romans, the Apostle Paul says that do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I would like to explore this quote in depth, and let us go ahead and take the phrase conform to the patterns of this world. Conform to the pattern of this world. A pattern is something that we use as a guide to make a design, or design something, To conform means to adapt or to accept things as they are, whether we are happy with those things or not. And precisely, what is the pattern? What is the pattern of the world? Well, in a nutshell, we are born, we live 70, 80, or 90 years, and then we die. And for the most part, the pattern of the world says that we must live with the set of cards that we are given at birth. The family that we are born in determines whether we get a college education or we eventually join the workforce as a blue-collar worker. But the apostle continues with this but. I'm going to want to stop there, okay? But, and this of itself is huge, because in this case, but is like a stop sign. It's like a stop sign. We stop on our tracks and say, wait a minute, I don't have to do this. Wait a minute, I deserve more than this. Or wait a minute, I can do better. Or wait a minute, I want more because I am worth more. Okay, it's a realization of our true self. It's a wake up moment. It's a moment of enlightenment. It's a moment of a higher awareness that we do not need to conform to the patterns and of the world, and that becomes the beginning of the next step, which is be transformed. Be transformed. Now, according to Webster's, transform means to change in composition or structure, to change the outward form or appearance, or to change in character or condition. And here's where things can get interesting, because the word transform implies that we are changing, And I say things get interesting because this change, whether we know it or not, begins to happen in our brain cells. The moment we stop, remember that but part of the quote, and begin to do something different, you see, our brain cells begin to change. Something starts happening there. You see, the old pattern of the world told us that our brains were rigid structures that could not be changed. Okay, now thanks to something called neuroscience, we know that the billions of cells in our brains are in constant state of evolution. Okay, there's a book that is called The Evolving Brain by Joe Dispenza, and he writes in his book, he writes, whether you consciously or unconsciously fabricate your thoughts and actions, you're always affirming and reaffirming your neurological self as you. Your neurological self as you. Okay? See if all right. So let me see if I got a little lost here on my PowerPoint. So so recent studies in neuroscience demonstrate that we can change our brain just by thinking. So this is another quote by Joe Dispenza. Somehow I apologize. Okay, I apologize. I do not have the PowerPoint. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you. Recent studies in neuroscience demonstrate that we can change our brain just by thinking. So ask yourself, what exactly do you spend most of your time mentally rehearsing, thinking about, and finally demonstrating? Whether you consciously or unconsciously fabricate your thoughts and actions, you are always affirming your neurological self as you. Okay, again, that is a quote by Joe Dispenza. The name of the book is Evolve Your Brain, The Science of Changing Your Mind. So allow me to get back to my earlier mention of positive thinking. Before, in the same fashion that we used to believe by faith, as instructed by our teachers, preachers, or elders, we also believe that positive thinking had an effect in our outer circumstances, and that is fine and dandy. We tried it, it worked, but did we know exactly how did it work? Well, I don't know about you. I didn't know. I just knew that it worked. Okay, but I did not know exactly what were the mechanics behind it. But now, thanks to years of research and the writings of luminaries such as Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, among many others, we are being taught how positive thinking works. And the science of quantum physics has proven that the observer of a reality has the power to change the molecular structure of that reality by the type of thoughts that he or she is holding in mind as he or she observes that reality. Okay, we saw that 20 years ago, and remember that documentary film, What the Bleep Do We Know? The Japanese guy with molecules of water, just by observing, by holding certain thoughts, he could change the molecules of that water. So this transformation that this quote talks about is a very real, and all we need to do is renew our minds. So yes, Yes, sir. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And how exactly do we do that? Okay, so we begin, of course, by changing the thoughts that we have held. However, this time we have full knowledge that as we do so, we are literally moment by moment, decision by decision, changing the structure of billions of brain cells, which at the same time are responsible for healing and restoring the cells of our entire body, regardless of what the pattern of the world have said about them. The author of the book Evolving Brain, Joe Dispenza, which I recommend fully, this guy had a horrendous bicycling accident 20 years ago. And he was told that unless he had a specific kind of surgery, he would not walk again, and he would be paralyzed from the chest down. And he only had 4 days. He only had 4 days to make a decision whether to have the surgery or not, because of medical reasons. Calcium deposits begin to grow, and which is part of the natural healing process. But he had a serious spinal injury, and to make the story short, he decided against the surgery, and it was a long process. It took him about a year, but with his mind, with his brain, he was able to heal. He was able to heal his body. So as I was saying before, now we begin by changing the thoughts that we've held, but this time we have full knowledge that we are changing the structure of billions of brain cells, and which are responsible for healing and restoring the cells of our bodies. So part of renewing our minds is opening our minds to new technologies. We must be willing to explore these new frontiers that are being conquered, and we no longer have to be stuck in old patterns. Do not conform to the patterns of this world. Old patterns of resentment or lack of forgiveness, because to do so creates toxic chemical reactions in our brains and the rest of our bodies. And what I just said is not new age mumbo jumbo, but a scientific fact. Today, we can, without a doubt, say that is science. Okay, and from this moment on, the choices that we make to think positive or negative thoughts have immediate consequences that can be measured by instruments in labs. And therefore, there are no more gray areas or wondering whether something works or not. It is time to get serious. It is time to get serious about our transformation. Now, are you ready to do it? I am. And we're going to be talking more about that on next week's lesson. So let us pray. We just take a moment as we give thanks. We give thanks for whatever insights we may have had today from this lesson. Knowing that we have the capacity, we have the power, we have the know-how now to alter our brain cells in a positive way. Therefore, altering our lives for good. We have been created in the image and likeness of ultimate reality, in the image and likeness of perfection. We were designed to be prosperous. We were designed to be joyful. We were designed to have healthy lives and lives of abundance. whether that abundance is of relationships or financial or fulfillment, whatever. The words of the Master Jesus was, I came so you may have life in abundance. So let us remember that our design is perfect. We no longer have to conform to the patterns of this world. In the silence for just a minute. And so it is. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to remind you to give us a like on Facebook and to share this video with your friends. And I will see you next week. In the meantime, this is just a reminder of ways that you can support our virtual ministry. Have a wonderful week, and remember, do not go through green lights, only go through clear intersections. Have an awesome week.